The afternoon light slants through half-empty rooms, casting long shadows across hardwood floors that have witnessed 8 years of footsteps, first eager, then comfortable, and finally distant. Thalia Winters stands motionless in what was once their bedroom, her fingertips tracing faded pencil marks on the doorframe. Height measurements. Not for children they never had, but for themselves, a playful tradition started on their first anniversary. 6 years of growth, the marks proclaim in fading pencil. The last line, dated 3 years ago, remains the final entry in their unfinished story. They say the hardest part of letting go is the memories. But what happens when you're forced to live with them, and the person who made them, for 30 more days? Outside, a real estate sign swings in the autumn breeze. Coming soon, it announces to the world, as if their ending deserves a grand opening. Inside, cardboard boxes line the hallway like sentinels guarding separate futures. Thalia's phone buzzes. A text from the lawyer, papers ready for final signatures tomorrow. Both parties must be present. She closes her eyes, remembering the day Kieran Reed first carried her through that front door. His travel-worn backpack abandoned on the porch, her architectural sketches for renovations already spread across the floor. His laughter echoing through empty rooms as he spun stories about the life they would build. Her precise plans for where everything would go. His spontaneous decision to paint the kitchen ceiling midnight blue because it should feel like we're dining under stars. Now, the stars have faded. The blue ceiling painted over in neutral beige, more appealing to potential buyers. The sound of keys in the door downstairs jolts her back to reality. Kieran's familiar footsteps, she could recognize their rhythm anywhere. Pause at the entryway. Hello. His voice carries up the stairs, hesitant in what used to be his home. Thalia's hand falls from the height marks. She straightens her shoulders, composes her face into professional neutrality, the same expression she wears when presenting sustainable housing proposals to difficult clients. In the hallway mirror, she catches a glimpse of herself. Polished, put together, porcelain. Nothing like the woman whose voice trembled just yesterday as she confirmed the divorce filing date, whose hands shook as she signed preliminary papers that would dissolve 8 years of marriage. Downstairs, Kieran places something on the counter, the sound of a paper bag, perhaps takeout. Always thinking about food, even now. She hears him exhale slowly, then the sound of a box being dragged across the floor. The familiar rhythm of his movements in their shared space feels like a language she's forgotten how to speak. 30 days. 1 month of navigating shared spaces with a stranger who knows her most intimate secrets. 1 month of pretending the sight of him doesn't still catch in her throat. 1 month of maintaining the perfect facade of their imperfect home until someone else buys the dream they failed to keep. Welcome to Love Enchanted, where we explore the complicated journey of hearts finding their way back to each other. If you enjoy stories of second chances and emotional reconnection, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Because Thalia Winters is about to discover that sometimes, the hardest goodbyes are the ones that take the longest to say. Before we begin, this is love from my heart to you. Or maybe, just a small love letter to say thank you. Once upon a time, this channel fell in love. Not with fairy tales, but with the people who believe in them. The ones who cry during the quiet parts. Who pause to feel a heartbeat between the lines. Who still believe that love, even complicated, flawed, impossible love, can be real. Love Enchanted was created for you. The romantic. The hopeful. The heart that's been broken and still dares to open again. So if you're here, you're not just watching a story. You're part of one. Stay with us, for stories that ache, heal, and remind us why love is always worth the risk. The morning arrives with clinical precision, much like Thalia herself. She parks her silver Audi in the driveway rather than the garage, a subtle acknowledgement that this is no longer home but a temporary assignment. The craftsman-style house with its wide porch and riverstone foundation stands as a monument to what they once believed would last forever. Thalia's suitcase wheels click rhythmically against the herringbone brick path. Inside, she moves with the efficiency of someone who has mentally mapped every step. 3 garment bags containing work attire hang in the guest room closet. Toiletries arranged by frequency of use in the hall bathroom, not the master en-suite where Kieran will stay. A small container of premium coffee beans placed precisely on the counter, alongside the grinder she couldn't bear to leave behind when she moved out 8 months ago. The house smells different now, like a museum of their former life, preserved but no longer living. She opens windows, letting October air sweep through rooms that hold too many memories. At precisely 2:17 p.m., Kieran's weathered Jeep pulls up. Unlike Thalia's methodical approach, he arrives like a gust of wind, arms full of mismatched bags, a potted plant tucked precariously under one elbow, and balanced atop everything, a paper bag emanating the unmistakable aroma of Thai food. "I brought dinner," he announces, as if this were any ordinary Tuesday. "Figured neither of us would want to cook tonight." The thoughtfulness catches her off guard. It was always his way, anticipating needs before they arose, while simultaneously forgetting scheduled appointments and bill due dates. Their first dinner unfolds at the kitchen island, neutral territory. They eat from containers rather than the ceramic plates they once registered for, using disposable chopsticks instead of the silverware set that had belonged to his grandmother. "The realtor called," Thalia says, breaking a silence filled only by the sound of cardboard containers being opened. "Melissa Thornton. She's handling the sale." Kieran nods, his eyes briefly meeting hers before darting away. "I remember her. She showed us this place." The memory surfaces unbidden between them. 8 years earlier, standing in this very kitchen, Kieran spinning Thalia around on the hardwood floors while Melissa Thornton discreetly stepped onto the porch to give them a moment. Thalia had already been sketching renovation plans on a napkin. Kieran had been narrating their future with his storyteller's gift. Sunday mornings at that breakfast nook, summer evenings on the porch, Christmas trees in that corner where the light hits just right. "She says we need to stay here together for 30 days, Thalia continues, pulling herself back to the present. "Something about the market being volatile. Buyers want to see the house maintained, lived in but not too lived in. And we both need to be available for showings." 30 days, Kieran repeats, running a hand through his perpetually disheveled hair, now shorter than when she left, with threads of silver at the temples she doesn't remember. "That's longer than expected." She says it's standard now, especially for homes in this price range. What remains unspoken hangs between them. 30 days of carefully orchestrated avoidance in a house designed for togetherness. "I'll take the guest room," Thalia offers, though she's already moved her things there. "I figured. I'll stay out of your way as much as possible." His voice carries no bitterness, only resignation. That night, Thalia lies awake in the unfamiliar bed, listening to the house's familiar sounds. The subtle creak of floorboards as Kieran moves around the master bedroom. The sound of the shower running, still the same pattern. 5 minutes on, brief pause to shampoo, 7 minutes to rinse and stand under the water thinking. Some habits survive even when relationships don't. A wall separates them now. Drywall, insulation, paint. Once, they had fallen asleep tangled together so completely it was hard to tell where one ended and the other began. Now, they navigate the house like cautious ghosts, haunting separate rooms of the same broken dream. 30 days suddenly feels like both an eternity and not nearly enough time to properly say goodbye to everything they built and lost between these walls. The collision of routines begins at 5:58 a.m. when Thalia descends the stairs in yoga pants and a cashmere sweater, only to find Kieran still at the kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of student essays, red pen in hand, empty coffee mug long forgotten. "You're still up." The question escapes before she can filter it. Kieran looks up, bleary-eyed but smiling. Sophomore poetry analysis. 27 different interpretations of Robert Frost. Turns out the road less traveled is actually quite crowded. The joke hangs awkwardly between them, a reflex from a time when she would have smiled, kissed the top of his head, and teased him about his grating procrastination. Instead, she navigates around him to the coffee maker, her sacred morning ritual now performed with an audience. The precision of her movements, beans measured to the gram, water temperature exact, contrasts sharply with the creative chaos of his workspace. Later, Thalia paces the back porch during a conference call, her voice carrying through the open window. The housing development needs to be carbon neutral without sacrificing affordability. The community deserves sustainability that doesn't feel like a compromise. From his makeshift office in the dining room, Kieran watches her gesticulate passionately, remembering how that same intensity once focused on their future together. Now it belongs to strangers who will live in homes she designs but never visits. That evening, he regales the empty kitchen with stories from his classroom while making a sandwich. So this kid, Marcus, he's been struggling all semester, right? Today he connects Holden Caulfield to his own brother's depression. Most honest writing I've seen in years. He turns, half expecting Thalia's thoughtful nod, only to find the kitchen empty, the habit of sharing his day with her still embedded in his muscles. They develop an unspoken choreography of avoidance. Bathroom schedule silently negotiated through the sound of running water and closed doors. Kitchen territories established. She takes breakfast, he claims dinner. Lunch is a neutral zone of quick preparation and quieter consumption. Thalia works late into the evening, spreadsheets and sustainable material samples spread across the living room floor. The familiar furrow between her brows deepens as she mutters calculations under her breath. At 1:13 a.m., Kieran descends for water, finding her asleep amid her work, head resting on blueprints, one hand still clutching a highlighter. The scene strikes him with painful familiarity. How many nights had ended this way during their marriage? His hand reaches for the throw blanket on the couch, a reflexive motion born from years of covering her sleeping form. Midway, he stops himself. That's not his role anymore. The boundaries between them may be invisible, but they're as solid as the foundation beneath them. He retreats upstairs, leaving her to the dreams that never included him. The first house viewing transforms them. Like actors stepping into familiar roles, they move through the house with synchronized purpose. Thalia arranging fresh flowers in strategic locations, Kieran adjusting blinds for optimal natural light. They communicate in efficient fragments. Windows. Already done. Kitchen towels. Changed them. Years of shared space have programmed them to anticipate each other's movements. They orbit around one another without collision, a dance they perform without conscious thought. When the prospective buyers arrive, a young couple with hopeful eyes, Thalia and Kieran present a united front of cordial smiles and rehearsed answers about square footage and renovation history. "Are you happy here?" the woman asks innocently, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. "It feels like such a warm home." The question lands between them like a grenade with its pin removed. Kieran's eyes meet Thalia's for a fraction of a second, long enough for both to recognize the same pain reflected back. "We've made wonderful memories here," Thalia finally answers, her professional smile never wavering. "It's a house that deserves a family who will appreciate it." Not a lie, but not the truth either. The perfect diplomatic answer from a woman who has mastered the art of keeping her walls intact. The fifth morning brings rain, a steady, relentless drumming against the roof that seems determined to unearth buried memories. Thalia stands at the kitchen window, watching water stream down the glass, distorting the garden beyond recognition. The garden where 3 years ago, everything began to unravel. "Storm's supposed to last all day," Kieran says, entering the kitchen with careful footsteps. "The showing's been rescheduled." Thalia nods, not turning from the window. "I remember when we used to love rainy days." The words escape before she can contain them, a dangerous invitation to reminisce. Rainy days had once meant blanket forts in the living room, reading aloud from Kieran's favorite novels, planning trips to places where the sun shone differently. Before the nursery plans were abandoned. Before the silence. Before they became strangers who happened to share the same address. The doctor's voice had been gentle but clinical. "I'm sorry, but there's no heartbeat." 11 weeks. They had made it to 11 weeks, long enough to paint a small room upstairs the palest shade of green. Long enough for Kieran to begin writing children's stories in a leather-bound journal. Long enough to believe. Thalia had nodded mechanically, her hand cold in Kieran's grip. The drive home passed in silence, broken only by the windshield wipers battling a sudden spring storm. That night, Kieran found her in the tiny green room, methodically removing the crib they'd assembled the weekend before. "Thalia, please." Let me help you. I don't need help. Her voice had been steady, her movements precise. I need to fix this. But there was nothing to fix. Nothing to design or rebuild or improve. Just an absence where possibility had lived. In the weeks that followed, Thalia retreated into work, staying late at the office, bringing projects home, filling every moment with measurable progress. Sustainable housing developments became her salvation, something concrete she could create and protect. Kieran tried reaching her through stories, through touch, through quiet presence. But each attempt met the same response: I'm fine. I just need to finish this. When an opportunity arose to cover a sustainable architecture movement in Scandinavia, Kieran took the assignment. 3 weeks away felt like breathing room, space for both of them to heal separately before trying again together. 3 weeks became 5. Then another assignment in South America. Then Southeast Asia. You've been gone more than you've been home this year, Thalia said one night, her voice flat as she reviewed blueprints at the dining table. Kieran set his travel bag down, jet-lagged and disoriented. He'd been in 3 countries over the past month, chasing stories that felt increasingly hollow. I thought you preferred it that way, he answered. You're always working when I'm here anyway. That's not fair, isn't it? When was the last time you actually saw me, Thalia? Really saw me? Because I've been standing right in front of you for years, waiting. She looked up then, really looked at him, and the distance in her eyes terrified him. I see you planning your next escape every time things get difficult here. That's my job. It's your choice, she corrected. Just like this is mine. She gestured to the work spread before her. At least my work builds something lasting. The words cut deeper than she knew. His stories, once his pride, suddenly seemed ephemeral. Tourist observations that would be forgotten with the next issue. They existed in orbits that rarely intersected. Kieran took a teaching position but continued freelancing, shorter trips, but still away. Thalia's career flourished, her sustainable designs winning awards and recognition. They became experts at avoiding the green room upstairs. Experts at small talk and logistical conversations. Experts at sleeping on opposite sides of a bed that grew larger every night. The final breaking point came on their 7th anniversary. Kieran had planned a weekend away, a desperate attempt to reconnect. Thalia had forgotten entirely, scheduling a client presentation that couldn't be moved. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Kieran's voice had risen, years of quiet frustration finally boiling over. You've built this perfect life that has absolutely no room for me in it. That's not true, she protested, but her eyes kept darting to her phone, checking the time. You haven't let me in since we lost the baby. Not once. The mention of their loss, the unspoken center around which they had orbited for years, froze her. Don't you dare use that against me, she whispered. I'm not using anything against you. I'm trying to reach you, Thalia. I've been trying for 3 years. By leaving. By taking every assignment that would put oceans between us? That's how you tried to reach me. I left because staying here watching you disappear into yourself was killing me. The raw honesty in his voice cracked something open between them, but instead of healing, it only revealed how deep the fracture went. I needed you here, she said finally. I needed you to stay, not run away to write about other people's lives instead of living your own. I needed you to want me here, not just as furniture in your perfectly designed life, but as your partner. The silence that followed contained everything they'd left unsaid for years. 2 weeks later, Thalia moved out. The rain continues its assault as Thalia and Kieran move through the house like ghosts haunting different timelines. She catches him staring at the closed door upstairs, the green room, now painted neutral beige and staged as a home office. Neither mentions it. Some wounds are still too raw to acknowledge, even after all this time. Some rooms remain locked by mutual, unspoken agreement. But the rain persists, washing away the careful facades they've constructed, revealing the foundations underneath, damaged but still standing. still connected by the architecture of a shared history they've never properly confronted. Until now. The rain traps them indoors like reluctant cellmates serving concurrent sentences. By late afternoon, the showing cancelled and work calls completed, Thalia finds herself wandering the house restlessly. The familiar yet strange sensation of being in her former home with nothing to do unsettles her carefully maintained equilibrium. She finds herself in their shared office, now half empty, with Kieran's desk still positioned by the window where he claimed the light was better for imagining. Her own desk, once paired with his in a symmetrical arrangement, had moved with her to the downtown apartment. The closet door stands slightly ajar. Inside, she knows, are the remnants of their paper lives, tax documents, house records, warranties for appliances that have already been replaced. Practical things they'll need to divide before the final sale. With Kieran out for a run, his habitual response to emotional weather, both meteorological and marital, she decides to begin the process of sorting. One less uncomfortable conversation to have later. The closet smells of cedar and forgotten possibilities. Banker's boxes line the upper shelf, each labeled in Kieran's distinctive handwriting: taxes 2018 to 2020, house documents, warranties and manuals. Organized chaos, his specialty. As she reaches for the house documents, her fingers brush against something tucked behind the row. A wooden box she doesn't recognize, handcrafted, with dovetail joints and a smooth finish. No label. Curiosity overcomes propriety. She slides it forward, surprised by its weight. Unlike the utilitarian storage containers surrounding it, this box was made with intention, with care. Inside, beneath a layer of soft cloth, lies an assortment of seemingly random objects. A wine cork, a smooth stone from the beach where he proposed, a napkin with her architectural sketches of their kitchen renovation, ticket stubs from concerts and plays, a pressed flower from their wedding centerpiece. Each item labeled with a date and brief note in his meticulous script. Her throat tightens as she recognizes what she's found, a chronology of their relationship preserved with uncharacteristic precision by a man who could never remember to pay the electric bill on time. At the bottom, a small envelope. Inside, the grainy black and white image she hasn't allowed herself to look at in 3 years. The ultrasound photo, dated 3 years and 4 months earlier. Beneath it, in handwriting less steady than the other labels, baby Winter Reed. The almost of you. Something breaks inside her, a dam holding back 3 years of carefully contained grief. Her knees give way as she sinks to the office floor, the ultrasound trembling in her fingers. This is how Kieran finds her, surrounded by the artifacts of their love, tears streaming unchecked down her face for the first time since the doctor's gentle, "I'm sorry." He freezes in the doorway, rain-soaked and breathless from his run. His eyes move from her face to the open box to the ultrasound photo, and something shifts in his expression. Fear, perhaps, or relief that the secret repository of his grief has finally been discovered. "You kept everything," she whispers, her voice raw. "Someone had to remember." The words hold no accusation, only a profound sadness. "I remember too." Her voice breaks. "Every day, Kieran. I just couldn't. I couldn't look back. It hurt too much." He moves slowly, as if approaching a wounded animal, and lowers himself to the floor beside her, close but not touching. "I know. But I couldn't look forward without honoring what we lost. Not just the baby." Her fingers trace the collection of memories. "Us. We lost us. Did we?" He gestures to the box between them. "Or did we just pack it away somewhere we couldn't see it anymore?" The question hangs between them, impossible to answer yet impossible to ignore. "Why didn't you show me this?" she asks finally. "I tried. That night, our last anniversary together. The weekend I planned. This is what I wanted to share with you. To show you I hadn't forgotten anything. That I was still collecting us." The revelation hits her with physical force. The anniversary she'd missed for work. The fight that had precipitated their separation. The opportunity lost because she'd been too afraid to face their shared history. "I didn't know," she whispers. "You didn't want to know," he corrects gently. "There's a difference." For the first time in 3 years, they sit together in silence that isn't filled with resentment or careful avoidance, but with a shared acknowledgement of their pain. Not healing, not yet, but the first crack in the walls they've built between them. Outside, the rain begins to ease, but neither moves to break the fragile moment of connection, the first honest one they've shared since everything fell apart. Morning arrives with tentative sunlight and an unspoken shift in atmosphere. The memory box sits closed on the coffee table, neither put away nor hidden, an acknowledgement of territory crossed. Thalia descends to find 2 coffee mugs on the counter. Kieran stands at the French press, his back to her, shoulders tense with awareness of her presence. "I made enough for 2, he says without turning. When he places her mug before her, oat milk, no sugar, exactly as she's always taken it, their fingers brush momentarily. Neither acknowledges the contact, but neither rushes to break it either. They drink in silence, the wall between them not gone but perhaps thinned, like fabric worn from too much weather. The realtor schedules back-to-back viewings for the weekend. Preparation becomes their shared mission, neutral ground where they can interact without excavating emotional ruins. The guest bathroom faucet is dripping, Thalia mentions over dinner. Separate meals eaten at the same table, progress of a sort. "I noticed. I'll fix it tonight." Later, she finds him beneath the sink, tools spread across the tile floor. Without discussion, she kneels beside him, holding the flashlight at precisely the angle he needs. They've done this dance before, her steady hand illuminating while he repairs. The familiarity of the routine carries them through the task without requiring words. When the faucet runs silent again, his satisfied smile meets her approving nod, a wordless exchange that feels dangerously close to their old synchronicity. The first weekend viewing brings a parade of strangers through their space. Thalia and Kieran perform their rehearsed roles with practiced ease, she highlighting the sustainable features she'd incorporated into the renovation, he charming potential buyers with anecdotes about the neighborhood. "You designed these built-ins?" a woman asks, running her hand along the bookshelf that separates the living and dining areas. "Yes," Thalia answers. "The wood is reclaimed from a local barn." "And those books aren't just for show," Kieran adds, the teacher in him emerging. "The previous owner, that would be me, actually read them all." The comment earns a laugh, and Thalia finds herself fighting an unexpected smile. His ability to put people at ease had been one of the first things she'd loved about him, the perfect counterbalance to her own more reserved nature. Between viewings, they find themselves gravitating to the kitchen island, their neutral territory, comparing notes on the potential buyers. "The couple with the toddler seemed serious," Kieran observes. "The husband kept checking the foundation corners. He knows what to look for. The wife loved your kitchen design." "Our kitchen design," Thalia corrects automatically, then freezes at the implication of shared ownership. Kieran's eyes meet hers, something unreadable passing between them before they both look away. Sunday morning brings unexpected domesticity. Thalia wakes to the smell of pancakes, Kieran's specialty from their early years together. She finds him at the stove, spatula in hand, hair still rumpled from sleep. "Thought we could use the energy. 3 more viewings today." She should decline, maintain the careful distance they've established. Instead, she finds herself setting the table, placing silverware in the pattern they'd always used. Forks on the left, knives on the right, napkins under the forks. He notices, a flicker of recognition crossing his face as he slides a perfect pancake onto her plate. They eat without speaking, but the silence has transformed from hostile territory into something almost comfortable, like a language they're relearning after years without practice. Later, as the final potential buyers leave, Melissa the realtor pulls them aside with a satisfied smile. "You two make an excellent team," she observes. "The way you present the house together, it really helps buyers envision a life here." The irony isn't lost on either of them. They've become expert performers in a play about the home they failed to maintain in reality. That night, Thalia pauses outside the master bedroom where Kieran has retreated. Her hand rises to knock. To say what, she isn't certain. After a moment's hesitation, she lowers it again and returns to the guest room. Some boundaries, once established, require more than an uneasy truce to cross. But for the first time in years, She finds herself wondering what might lie on the other side. The open house is Melissa's idea, a Sunday afternoon event to attract serious buyers. The market's heating up, she explains, arranging fresh flowers in the entryway. This neighborhood rarely has properties available. We should expect a good turnout. Thalia and Kieran prepare with the efficiency of a long-married couple, a painful irony not lost on either of them. She bakes cookies to fill the house with an inviting aroma. He ensures all light bulbs work and blinds are perfectly angled. They move around each other in a choreographed dance of domestic performance. By 2 o'clock, the house fills with strangers examining their life choices, from the hardwood floors they'd refinished together during their second year of marriage to the kitchen backsplash they'd argued over for weeks before compromising on something neither had initially wanted but both grew to love. Thalia overhears fragments of approval, gorgeous natural light, smart use of space, quality finishes. She stands in the kitchen, answering questions about the sustainable features she'd incorporated, when she notices a couple lingering in the living room. Something in their body language, the woman's hand squeezing her partner's arm, their hushed conversation, catches her attention. As they move toward the door, Melissa intercepts them with her practiced smile. "What did you think of the property?" The woman hesitates, glancing back at the space. "It's beautiful, truly. The design is impeccable, but..." Melissa prompts. "It feels sad somehow. Like the house is holding its breath." Her partner nods in agreement. "It's strange, everything looks perfect, but it doesn't feel lived in. It feels like it's waiting for something." The observation lands like a physical blow. Thalia turns away, busying herself with rearranging already perfect cookie displays, but the words echo in her mind. Sad. Holding its breath. Waiting. The remainder of the open house passes in a blur. By 5 o'clock, when the last potential buyers leave, Thalia feels hollowed out, as if the strangers have carried pieces of her away with their curious gazes and probing questions. Melissa departs with optimistic predictions about offers, leaving Thalia and Kieran alone in the pristine, staged version of their former life. "That went well," Kieran offers, collecting discarded napkins and empty water bottles. Thalia stands motionless in the center of the living room, looking at the space through the stranger's eyes. "Did you hear what that couple said? About the house feeling sad?" Kieran pauses, a flicker of discomfort crossing his face. "People say all kinds of things. It doesn't mean anything. It means everything." Her voice rises unexpectedly. "They're right. This house is sad. We made it sad." "Thalia." "No, don't Thalia me in that placating teacher voice." The dam breaks suddenly, years of carefully contained emotion flooding through. "We did this. We built something beautiful and then we filled it with silence and resentment and grief we were too cowardly to face together." Kieran's jaw tightens. "That's not fair. Isn't it? Look around, Kieran. Look at this perfect, empty shell we created. It's exactly like our marriage, beautiful on the outside, hollow on the inside." "You don't get to rewrite history," he says, his own control slipping. "You checked out long before I did. After the baby. Don't you dare blame this on the baby we lost." "I'm not blaming our child. I'm saying you disappeared after it happened. You built walls I couldn't climb, rooms I couldn't enter. And you just gave up trying." The accusation tears from her throat. "You ran away to write about other people's lives instead of fixing our own. Because you wouldn't let me in." His voice breaks. "Do you have any idea what it was like watching you suffer and not being allowed to help? Having you flinch when I touched you? Seeing you pour yourself into work because blueprints were safer than feelings? And your solution was to leave me alone with it all?" Tears stream freely down her face now. "To take assignments that kept you gone for weeks? Months. I left because staying here watching you disappear was unbearable," he says, quieter now but no less intense. "Every day, I lost another piece of you. Another piece of us. So you abandoned me. So I survived. The raw honesty stops her cold. I survived the only way I knew how. Just like you did. The silence that follows feels different from their usual careful avoidance, heavier with truth but somehow less suffocating. Thalia sinks onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. We really broke this, didn't we? Not just the marriage. This home. Us. Kieran sits beside her, not touching, but closer than they've been in years. Maybe that couple was right. Maybe the house is sad. Maybe it has been holding its breath, waiting for us to finally say these things out loud. She looks at him then, really looks at him for the first time in years. The new lines around his eyes. The silver threading through his hair. The familiar curve of his mouth now set in a weariness she helped create. I didn't know how to grieve and love at the same time, she admits finally. It felt like betrayal, to be happy, to want you, to move forward when our baby never would. I didn't know how to help you without fixing you, he counters. And you didn't need fixing. You needed space I didn't know how to give. It's not reconciliation. It's not even forgiveness. But as they sit in the fading light of the home they once built with such hope, it's the first honest conversation they've had in years. The first time they've acknowledged the depth of what they lost and the parts they each played in losing it. The house, perhaps, exhales. There's a particular kind of silence that follows truth, not the hollow silence of things unsaid, but the full silence of revelation. It settles over Thalia and Kieran like fresh snow, transforming the landscape between them into something both familiar and utterly new. What does it mean to truly see someone again after years of careful blindness? To recognize not just the person you once loved, but the stranger they've become in your absence, and to glimpse, beneath the changes, the essential core that drew you to them in the first place? Perhaps it's like returning to a childhood home. The doorways seem smaller, the distances between rooms shorter than memory insists they should be. Yet the particular quality of light through a certain window remains unchanged, triggering sense memories so powerful they transcend time. Thalia and Kieran stand at this threshold now, between the comfort of their practiced distance and the terrifying possibility of recognition. To truly see someone is to acknowledge their capacity to hurt you. To be truly seen is to have your wounds and failures illuminated alongside your strengths. 4 years, they've been ghosts in each other's lives, present but insubstantial, haunting the periphery of what once was. Now, suddenly corporeal again, they face the most human of questions. Is it braver to preserve what remains through careful separation, or to risk everything on the chance of rebuilding from ruins? Some broken things, once shattered, can never be made whole again. Others, when mended with care and honesty, bear their golden seams of repair as testament to their journey. More valuable for having been broken, more beautiful for having been restored. Do you believe some relationships deserve a second chance, or are some things broken beyond repair? What makes the difference between a fracture that strengthens and one that destroys? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The forecast calls it a significant weather event, meteorological understatement for the atmospheric river bearing down on the city. By noon, the sky darkens to a premature twilight, and rain begins its persistent assault. Thalia works from home, the dining room table covered with sustainable material samples for a new project. Kieran grades papers in the living room, red pen poised over student essays about Shakespearean tragedy, ironies not lost on either of them. Since their explosive confrontation 4 days earlier, they've existed in a state of cautious awareness. Not quite peace, not quite tension, something unnamed between the two. They speak when necessary, their words careful but no longer weaponized. They share meals occasionally, though conversation remains sparse. The first thunderclap arrives like artillery fire, sudden and violent enough to rattle windows. Kieran glances up, meeting Thalia's eyes across the open space between rooms. That was close, he observes. She nods, returning to her work. But something has shifted in the atmosphere beyond the barometric pressure, a heightened awareness of shared space, of vulnerability. The second thunderclap coincides with the power failing. Darkness descends, broken only by the gray light filtering through rain-lashed windows. Perfect, Thalia mutters, saving her laptop's remaining battery. I'll check the breakers, Kieran offers, already moving toward the utility closet with the confidence of someone who knows every corner of this house blindfolded. The flashlight beam sweeps across the electrical panel. Not us. Looks like the whole neighborhood. Thalia's phone illuminates her face as she checks for outage reports. They're estimating 4 to 6 hours for restoration. Outside, the storm intensifies, wind driving rain sideways against windows, tree branches scraping against siding like desperate fingers seeking entrance. The first drop falls between them, a perfect sphere of water descending from the ceiling to splash on the hardwood floor. Then, another. And another. The roof, they say in unison, both already moving. Kieran retrieves buckets from the garage while Thalia locates the leak in the ceiling, directly above the built-in bookshelves they designed together during their second year of marriage. It's coming from the attic access panel, she calls, standing on a chair to examine the damage. The seal must have deteriorated. Kieran appears with buckets and towels. We need to protect the books. They work with the synchronicity of long practice, Thalia directing, Kieran executing, then reversing roles as needed. She climbs into the attic with a tarp while he positions containers to catch the spreading leaks. They pass tools without needing to specify which ones, anticipating each other's needs through years of shared projects. When Thalia emerges from the attic, cobwebs in her hair and dust streaking her face, Kieran hands her a towel without comment. She accepts it with a nod of thanks. It's temporary, she explains, wiping her hands. The main roof is holding, but that access panel needs proper repair once the storm passes. At least we caught it before serious damage, he offers. A particularly violent gust rattles the house, and the lights flicker momentarily, a power surge through the grid, before plunging them back into darkness. That can't be good for the electronics, Thalia murmurs, moving to unplug sensitive equipment. As if in response, a tremendous crack splits the air. Too close, too loud to be mere thunder. The impact reverberates through the foundation beneath their feet. They move to the front window in unison, flashlight beams cutting through darkness to illuminate disaster. The massive oak from their neighbor's yard now sprawls across the street, power lines tangled in its branches. That explains the surge, Kieran says unnecessarily. We're definitely not getting power back tonight. The realization settles between them, a night together in darkness, without the distractions of work or technology or careful avoidance. Kieran runs a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it creates an echo of memory in Thalia's muscles. I'll get the camping lanterns from the garage. And the portable stove. I'll find candles and check our food situation. They separate to their tasks, moving through the darkened house with the confidence of muscle memory. When they reconvene in the kitchen, illuminated by the warm glow of lantern light, the scene carries an unsettling intimacy, reminiscent of their early days in the house, before renovations were complete, when camping in their own home had been an adventure rather than an emergency. Thalia assembles a simple meal from refrigerator contents that won't survive a prolonged outage. Kieran sets up the camp stove with practiced efficiency. They work around each other in the confined space, their bodies remembering how to share territory even as their minds maintain careful distance. Over dinner, omelets with rapidly defrosting vegetables. Conversation emerges hesitantly, like spring growth after harsh winter. Remember that ice storm our first year here? Kieran ventures. When the power was out for 3 days? A smile tugs at Thalia's lips despite herself. We slept in front of the fireplace. And you insisted on saving that ridiculous ice sculpture that formed on the bird bath. It looked like a perfect swan. It looked like a melting blob with a neck. The laugh escapes before she can contain it, rusty from disuse but genuine. You took pictures to prove your point. Which I still have somewhere, he admits. The acknowledgement of preserved memories hangs between them, not as accusation now, but as shared history. As the evening progresses, they gravitate to the living room, where Kieran builds a fire in the rarely used fireplace. The storm continues its assault outside, but within these walls, something shifts, the emergency creating a temporary sanctuary from their practiced estrangement. Thalia finds herself sharing details of her current project, a community of affordable, sustainable homes. Kieran describes a breakthrough with a struggling student. Conversation flows more easily in firelight than it has in years under harsher illumination. When Thalia yawns, Kieran retrieves blankets without discussion. The power outage makes the entire house cold except this room, with its crackling fire and accumulated body heat. "You take the couch," he offers. "I'll use the floor." "Don't be ridiculous. The couch is big enough." The statement hangs between them, practical yet loaded with implication. They arrange themselves carefully, a respectful distance maintained between their bodies. The last thing Thalia remembers is the hypnotic pattern of rain against windows and the steady rhythm of Kieran's breathing beside her. Sometime in the deepest part of night, the storm finally relents. In sleep, freed from conscious restraint, Thalia's hand finds Kieran's, fingers intertwining with the certainty of homing pigeons finding their way back to familiar roosts. Neither will mention it in the morning. But both will remember the comfort of connection, how easily the body recalls what the mind tries to forget. The house gleams with expectation, surfaces polished to mirror shine, fresh flowers arranged with artistic precision, scented candles creating an atmosphere of welcoming warmth. Thalia adjusts a throw pillow for the third time, her movements betraying nervous energy. "Melissa says they're serious buyers," she explains, though Kieran hasn't questioned her meticulousness. "Pre-approved for financing, looking to close quickly." Kieran nods, arranging wine glasses on the kitchen island, part of the staging that has become routine for important viewings. The couple with the 2 kids. They seemed to love the backyard. And the school district. Thalia checks her watch. They should be here in 20 minutes. The dinner simmering on the stove, a rosemary roast chicken with root vegetables, wasn't strictly necessary for the viewing, but Thalia had insisted. "People buy with all their senses," she'd explained. "The aroma creates an emotional connection." Kieran hadn't argued. Since the storm 3 days earlier, they've maintained a careful truce, the memory of waking entangled on the couch hovering unacknowledged between them. His phone chimes with a text. "It's Melissa." His expression shifts as he reads. "They've had a family emergency. Viewing cancelled." Thalia's shoulders drop slightly, disappointment mingled with something that might be relief. "Did she reschedule?" "Tomorrow afternoon." He gestures toward the stove. "What about dinner?" The question hangs between them, practical yet loaded with implication. They've shared meals since cohabiting, but always casual, often separate despite sharing space. This is different, a proper dinner, prepared with care, with wine already breathing on the counter. "Seems a shame to waste it," Thalia says finally, her tone deliberately casual. "I could set the table," Kieran offers. "The real one, not just the island." The dining table, site of their most vicious argument before separation, has remained neutral territory, used primarily for Thalia's work materials. The suggestion to reclaim it for its intended purpose carries weight beyond the simple words. "I'd like that," she answers softly. They move around each other with the grace of long-time dancers, Kieran gathering plates and silverware, Thalia putting finishing touches on the meal. The domesticity feels both foreign and achingly familiar, like returning to a childhood home now occupied by strangers. The first glass of wine accompanies serving, a rich Cabernet they discovered together on their 5th anniversary trip to Sonoma. Neither mentions this shared memory, but it colors the air between them. "This is delicious," Kieran says after his first bite. "I've missed your cooking." The simple admission, the first direct acknowledgement of missing anything about their shared life, shifts something in the atmosphere. Thalia's eyes meet his briefly before returning to her plate. "I've missed cooking for someone who appreciates it." The second glass of wine arrives with reminiscence, cautious at first, then flowing more freely. "Remember when we tried to make paella on the back porch?" Kieran ventures. Thalia laughs, a sound he hasn't heard directed at him in years. "And the neighbor called the fire department because of the smoke." "Worth it, though. Best paella I've ever had." "Because we made it together," she says, then looks surprised at her own words. The third glass accompanies their migration to the living room, plates cleared but conversation continuing. The careful distance they've maintained narrows with each shared memory, each rediscovered connection. I found your old record collection when I was checking the attic during the storm, Thalia mentions, curled at one end of the couch while Kieran occupies the other. It's still in good condition. His eyes brighten with genuine pleasure. Including the Ella Fitzgerald? All there. Even that scratched Nina Simone you refused to replace. That scratch gives it character, he defends, the old argument resurfacing without its former sting. Like a beauty mark on an otherwise perfect face. Something in his expression as he says this, the way his eyes linger on her face, causes heat to rise in Thalia's cheeks. We could play one, she suggests impulsively. The record player's still in the cabinet. Minutes later, Nina Simone's voice fills the room, warm, textured, slightly imperfect with a familiar scratch on the third track. The song that had played during their first dance as husband and wife. Kieran stands, extending his hand in a gesture that crosses the careful boundaries they've established. For old time's sake, she should refuse. Self-preservation demands it. Instead, Thalia places her hand in his, allowing him to draw her to her feet and into the circle of his arms. They move together with a muscle memory of countless shared dances, her head finding the perfect resting place against his shoulder, his hand settling at the exact curve of her waist. Their bodies remember what their minds have tried to forget, how perfectly they fit together. Nina sings of love and loss and finding home, the scratch in the vinyl creating a moment of suspended breath before the music continues. In that pause, Thalia looks up, finding Kieran's gaze already on her face, open, vulnerable, questioning. The moment stretches between them, possibility expanding to fill the space between their bodies. His eyes drop to her lips, his head tilting almost imperceptibly downward. Thalia's hand rises to his chest, not pushing away, but creating necessary distance. We can't rewrite the past in one night, she whispers. Disappointment flickers across his features, quickly replaced by understanding. His hand covers hers where it rests against his heart. No, he agrees. But maybe we can stop pretending it didn't matter. The song ends, but they remain connected, not embracing, not separating, existing in the liminal space between what was and what might yet be. It mattered, Thalia acknowledges finally. It still does. The admission costs her, but as Kieran's fingers tighten gently around hers, she recognizes it as an investment rather than a loss, the first tentative step towards something neither of them can yet name. Thalia wakes to the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the sound of the front door closing. Through sleep-blurred eyes, she finds a mug on the bedside table. Oat milk, no sugar, still steaming. Beside it, a yellow post-it note in Kieran's distinctive handwriting, early department meeting. Showing at 2 p.m. Coffee seemed necessary. The gesture, small yet deliberate, follows her through the morning like a shadow of something once familiar. Not quite the comfortable routines of marriage, but no longer the careful avoidance of strangers. Something in between, a tentative reaching across carefully maintained boundaries. Later, she finds herself in the grocery store, hand hovering over Kieran's favorite brand of dark chocolate without conscious intention. She adds it to her basket, telling herself it's simple courtesy, not the rekindling of habits she'd worked so hard to break. The chocolate appears on Kieran's desk without comment, her own wordless response to his coffee offering. From the guest room where she works, Thalia hears his soft laugh of recognition when he discovers it. They orbit each other with new awareness, like celestial bodies whose gravitational fields have shifted, altering trajectories in subtle but undeniable ways. At dinner, they share space at the kitchen island without the former tension, discussing house showings and neighborhood news with cautious ease. 3 more offers came in today, Kieran mentions, passing her the salt without being asked. Melissa says we should review them tomorrow. The we hangs between them, a pronoun that once encompassed their entire world, now carefully deployed for practical matters only. Yet something in his tone suggests broader application, testing boundaries. I can do tomorrow afternoon, Thalia responds, her eyes meeting his briefly before returning to her plate. After my client call. The conversation isn't remarkable. The comfort level is. Rain returns, gentler than the storm but persistent enough to keep them housebound. Kieran grades papers at the dining table while Thalia works through design challenges in the living room, their separate activities conducted in companionable silence broken only by occasional comments. This student thinks Hemingway was too obsessed with fishing and drinking to write anything meaningful. Kieran reads aloud, amusement coloring his voice. Thalia glances up from her sketches. Bold critique for a sophomore. Bold but not entirely wrong, he concedes with a smile that reaches his eyes, the genuine one she'd almost forgotten, different from the polite version he uses with strangers. When she rises to make tea, she prepares 2 cups without discussion. When he orders lunch, he remembers her preference for extra ginger in the Thai curry. Small gestures accumulating like snowflakes, individually insignificant, collectively transformative. That evening, Thalia finds herself preparing Kieran's favorite meal, herb-crusted salmon with roasted vegetables. Not for a showing, not for potential buyers, but because she remembers how his face lights up at the first bite, how he always saves the crispy edges for last. They eat at the dining table again, conversation flowing more easily than it has in years. She catches herself laughing at his stories about overzealous parents at school conferences, then watches surprise and pleasure flicker across his face at the sound. Later, washing dishes side by side, their hands brush beneath the soapy water. Neither pulls away immediately. Neither acknowledges the contact either. The confusion arrives like an uninvited guest, settling heavily between them as the novelty of rediscovered connection gives way to uncertainty about what comes next. Thalia finds herself checking her appearance before entering shared spaces, a habit from early dating days, not the comfortable indifference of established marriage nor the deliberate disregard of separation. Kieran catches himself watching her work, the familiar furrow between her brows as she concentrates, the way she tucks hair behind her ear when solving a problem. The sight awakens feelings he'd convinced himself were safely buried. They move through the house with heightened awareness of each other's presence, drawn together by memory and new possibility, held apart by the ghosts of past pain. "We should talk about the offers," Thalia says over breakfast, her tone deliberately professional. "Melissa needs our decision by tomorrow." Kieran nods, equally formal. "Of course. Business first." The words acknowledge what neither is ready to voice, that beneath the practical considerations of house sales and divorce proceedings, something else is taking shape. Something fragile and unnamed. Something that terrifies them both with its potential for renewed hurt. Because they've been here before, standing at the threshold of possibility, hearts open and vulnerable. They know exactly how much can be lost when love isn't enough to overcome human frailty. And neither is certain they have the courage to risk everything a second time. The house sale progresses with mechanical efficiency, offer accepted, inspection scheduled, paperwork multiplying like cells dividing. Thalia and Kieran sign documents with practiced detachment, their signatures appearing side by side on pages that will legally sever their connection to this home and, by extension, to each other. The buyers want to close quickly, Melissa explains during her morning visit. They've requested all disclosure documents by tomorrow. After she leaves, Kieran heads to his classroom for afternoon office hours, leaving Thalia alone to gather the required paperwork. The task takes her to Kieran's desk in the shared office, territory she's largely avoided despite their warming relations. The desk drawer sticks slightly, swollen from humidity or simply from disuse. When it finally yields, she finds the expected folders: home warranty, renovation permits, property taxes. Organized chaos, Kieran's specialty. As she lifts the tax folder, something slips from between its pages, a cream-colored envelope, unsealed, her name written on the front in Kieran's distinctive handwriting. Not Thalia Winters, as she appears on legal documents, but simply Thalia. Intimate, personal, the way he used to address birthday cards and anniversary notes. She should replace it, respect his privacy. Instead, her fingers extract the letter inside, dated 13 months earlier, just weeks after she moved out. Thalia. I've started this letter 17 times. Each attempt feels inadequate, too formal, too emotional, too much or not enough. Words have always been my refuge, but they fail me now when I need them most. I'm sorry. Not just for the final argument that broke us, but for the 1,000 small retreats that preceded it. For running away when I should have stayed. For mistaking your silence for rejection rather than recognizing it as pain. When we lost the baby, I lost you too. I didn't know how to reach you across that gulf of grief. So I did what seemed easiest. I gave you space. Too much space. Space that filled with assumptions and misunderstandings and eventually with absence. I blamed you for withdrawing. For burying yourself in work rather than facing our loss together. But I was equally guilty, taking assignments that kept me away, telling myself I was respecting your process when really I was protecting myself from the helplessness of watching you suffer. We both failed, Thalia. We failed each other and we failed us. I don't know if there's a path back from where we are. Maybe some damage can't be repaired. But I need you to know that what we built mattered. It still matters. You still matter. If you ever want to come home, I'll build a new door. Always, Kieran. The letter trembles in her hands, vision blurring as she reads it a second time, then a third. The date registers fully, written when wounds were freshest, when anger might have been easier than this raw, honest accounting of shared failure. Yet he never sent it. The realization settles heavily. Had he lacked courage? Or had he believed she was beyond reaching? Perhaps both. Thalia sinks into his desk chair, the letter resting in her lap as memories cascade through her carefully constructed defenses, her own role in their dissolution suddenly illuminated with painful clarity. How she'd interpreted his travel assignments as abandonment rather than recognizing his helplessness in the face of her grief. How she'd built walls of work and routine to protect herself, never considering he might be drowning in the same sorrow. How she'd measured his love by his ability to fix what was broken, then resented him for trying to fix her instead of simply holding space for her pain. The afternoon passes in reflection as Thalia moves through the house, seeing not just Kieran's failures but her own, the shared responsibility for what they'd lost. When he returns at dusk, she's waiting in the living room, the letter on the coffee table between them. I found this, she says simply as he enters. Kieran freezes, recognition and vulnerability washing across his face. I never found the right moment. Or maybe you never believed I would listen. He sits across from her, hands clasped between his knees. Would you have? Back then. The question deserves honesty. Probably not, she admits. I wasn't ready to hear it. Or to say what needed saying. And now. Thalia takes a deep breath, stepping onto the fragile bridge his words had built 13 months too late. I'm sorry too. For shutting you out. For making you feel like you weren't enough when the truth was I didn't know how to accept comfort from anyone, even you. Especially you. Why especially me? Because you mattered the most. Because disappointing you felt like the greatest failure. Understanding dawns in his eyes. You could never disappoint me, Thalia. But I did. We disappointed each other. We just never said it out loud. The silence that follows feels cleansing rather than oppressive, a clearing of stagnant air. What do we do with this now? Kieran asks finally, gesturing to the letter and all it represents. Thalia considers the question carefully. I don't know. I just know I needed to acknowledge it. To acknowledge my part in what happened to us. It's not reconciliation. It's not even forgiveness, not yet. But as they sit in the growing darkness, facing each other across the ruins of what they built and destroyed together, it's something equally powerful. The humility of shared responsibility, the first foundation stone of whatever might come next. Thank you, Kieran says simply, for listening now. Thank you, Thalia echoes, for writing it then. Even if I'm only reading it now. Some words arrive too late to save what was. But perhaps, they both realize, not too late to shape what might still be. The home inspection reveals minor issues requiring attention, a loose railing on the back steps, a leaking faucet in the guest bathroom, weather stripping needing replacement on the front door. Simple repairs that once would have been weekend projects tackled together without thought. I can handle these, Kieran offers over breakfast, inspection reports spread between their coffee mugs. Thalia studies the list, then meets his eyes. We could do them together. Might go faster. The suggestion hangs between them, Not just practical cooperation but a deliberate choice to share space and purpose again. By afternoon, they're on the back porch, tools spread around them as they secure the loose railing. Thalia holds the level while Kieran tightens screws, their bodies moving in the familiar choreography of countless home projects past. "Remember when we rebuilt this entire porch?" she asks, handing him the drill without being asked. 3 weekends in July. You designed it, I provided the muscle, and we both ended up with splinters in unfortunate places. Her laugh comes easily now, no longer rusty from disuse. "Worth it, though. Every splinter," he agrees, his eyes holding hers a moment longer than necessary. The weather stripping project leads to unexpected excavation, not of the doorframe, but of memories long buried. "I found this behind the molding," Kieran says, holding up a tarnished coin. "Remember?" Thalia takes it, recognition warming her expression. "The lucky penny from our first date. You insisted we embed it when we moved in, for prosperity and protection. Seems it worked for the house at least. It's worth considerably more than when we bought it." The unspoken hangs between them, that the home prospered while their marriage did not. That some forms of value increase while others diminish. Later, repairing the bathroom faucet leads to reminiscence about their honeymoon cottage with its temperamental plumbing. One memory flows into another: first apartment disasters, renovation triumphs, the accumulated history of 2 lives intertwined through spaces shared and transformed together. "We were good at this part," Thalia observes as they pack away tools. "Building things." "We still are," Kieran replies softly. Rain keeps them indoors, repairs complete but restlessness lingering. Kieran suggests a long-abandoned tradition, the Sunday crossword puzzle they once tackled together over brunch. They settle at the kitchen table, shoulders occasionally brushing as they lean over the newspaper. Clues spark debates, inside jokes, references to shared experiences that require no explanation. 7 letters. What might be found at the end of a journey? Thalia reads. "Arrival," Kieran suggests. She shakes her head. Doesn't fit with the cross clues. They stare at the empty boxes together until understanding dawns simultaneously. "Another," they say in unison. The word fills more than just the puzzle squares, it settles between them with quiet significance. Another chance. Another beginning. Another possibility neither has dared name directly. That evening, conversation ventures into deeper waters, dreams deferred, lessons learned during separation, the people they've become in each other's absence. "I started therapy," Kieran admits. "After you left. I needed to understand why I run from difficult emotions." "I did too," Thalia confesses. "My therapist helped me see how I use control as protection." The honesty feels like oxygen after years of holding their breath around each other. Reality intrudes with Melissa's email, closing date confirmed, final walkthrough scheduled, countdown to departure officially begun. The house will change hands in 4 days. They sit together on the back porch, watching twilight settle over the garden they'd planted together. Perennials returning year after year despite neglect, resilient in ways they hadn't been. "Where will you go?" Kieran asks, the question he's avoided for weeks. "My lease is month to month. I haven't decided yet." Thalia hesitates. "You." "I've been looking at apartments near the school. Nothing feels right." The unspoken truth hovers between them, that right has become a complicated standard, measured against the connection they're cautiously rebuilding. "It's strange," Thalia says finally. "All these weeks I've been dreading living here together, and now." "Now you're dreading the alternative," he finishes. She nods, vulnerability naked in her expression. "I'd forgotten who we were before everything broke. Or maybe I never let myself remember because it hurt too much." Kieran's hand finds hers on the porch railing, a deliberate choice rather than unconscious reaching. "I remember. I always remembered." Their fingers intertwine as darkness falls, neither speaking the fear that pulses between their joined hands, that they might be rediscovering each other just in time to say goodbye again. The house sale proceeds with mechanical certainty while their hearts navigate territory unmapped by legal documents. the fragile, tentative rebuilding of trust between two people who once knew each other better than themselves, and are now learning each other anew. The house enters escrow with the formal efficiency of legal machinery. Papers signed, earnest money transferred, contingencies removed. What took 8 years to build is dismantled in a morning meeting at Melissa's office, Thalia and Kieran sitting side by side at a conference table, signing their names on designated lines. "Congratulations," Melissa says, collecting the documents with a professional smile. "Barring any unforeseen issues, you'll close in 3 days." The buyers are thrilled. Congratulations. The word lands oddly, celebrating the successful dissolution of the life they'd planned together. Thalia and Kieran exchange a glance of shared recognition, a moment of understanding no one else in the room can access. Back at the house, no longer theirs, but not yet belonging to others, they begin the final sorting of possessions. Moving boxes appear in each room like physical manifestations of their impending separation. Thalia stands in the master bedroom closet, methodically removing the clothes she'd left behind months earlier. Each item carries memories: the blue sweater she wore on their last Christmas together, the black dress from a faculty dinner at Kieran's school, the worn flannel shirt she'd stolen from him years ago and never returned. In the guest room, Kieran packs books and papers, occasionally pausing over an item that bridges their separate lives: a novel she'd recommended that changed his teaching approach, a framed photograph from a trip to the coast, the handmade ceramic mug she'd given him just because, on an ordinary Tuesday. They work separately but in awareness of each other's presence, the house filled with the sounds of packing, tape stretching across cardboard, bubble wrap crinkling, the occasional soft thud of something being set aside for further consideration. Late afternoon finds them both drawn to the back porch as if by magnetic pull, the space where they've always retreated in moments of transition. The October air carries a hint of wood smoke from neighboring chimneys, the garden below them already preparing for winter dormancy. "I think I'm finished upstairs," Thalia says, leaning against the railing beside him. Kieran nods, his gaze fixed on the Japanese maple they'd planted their second spring, now a mature tree, its leaves turning crimson at the edges. "I've got one more box of books, then I'm done too." Silence settles between them, not the tense silence of their early days back in the house, but something more contemplative, tinged with the melancholy of endings. "Do you remember when I proposed here?" Kieran asks suddenly. Thalia's expression softens with the memory. "You'd hidden the ring in that ceramic frog, which you almost threw away during spring cleaning. Because it was hideous. It had character," he defends, the old argument resurfacing without its former sting. "It had googly eyes that didn't match and a chip on its foot, which made it unique. Like us." The comparison hangs in the air between them, the imperfect, mismatched pair they'd been, the flawed but solid foundation they'd built together. "We were happy here, weren't we?" Thalia asks, her voice barely above a whisper. "Before everything fell apart." That wasn't just revisionist memory. Kieran turns to face her fully, his expression open and unguarded. "We were happy. Imperfectly, complicatedly happy, but real." She nods, accepting the truth of it. "I've been trying to remember when exactly it changed. When we started breaking instead of bending." "I don't think there was a single moment," he says thoughtfully. "It was more like erosion, slow, constant pressure wearing away at what we'd built until suddenly the foundation couldn't hold anymore. And now we've spent a month rebuilding just enough to say goodbye properly." The irony isn't lost on either of them, that their most honest communication has come when it seemingly matters least. Kieran studies her face in the fading light, memorizing details as if for a long journey. "If this was the last 30 days of US, would you regret it?" The question cuts to the heart of everything unspoken between them, not just about the past month, but about the 8 years preceding it. About choices made and unmade, paths taken and abandoned. Thalia meets his gaze directly, allowing herself the luxury of complete honesty. "I would regret that it took losing everything to finally see what we had. That we had to break completely before we could speak truthfully to each other." Her hand finds his on the railing, a deliberate choice rather than accidental contact. I would regret that we learned how to love each other better only when it was too late to matter. What if it's not? The words escape him before he can reconsider, vulnerability naked in his expression. Not what? Too late. The question hangs between them as twilight deepens around the house that will soon belong to strangers, a house that has witnessed their highest hopes and deepest failures, and now stands witness to this fragile moment of possibility. Thalia doesn't answer immediately, her eyes searching his for certainty neither of them can honestly claim. I don't know, she says finally. I only know I'm not ready to say goodbye. Not yet. It's not a promise. It's not even a plan. But as the first stars appear above the garden they planted together, it feels like permission to imagine a future neither had dared consider until now. The final morning arrives with cruel perfection, sunlight streaming through windows soon to frame different lives, birds singing in trees that will shade unfamiliar children. Thalia wakes early, listening to the quiet house one last time, memorizing the particular creak of the third stair, the way light filters through bedroom curtains they'd selected together years ago. Downstairs, Kieran makes coffee for two, a ritual that has returned these past weeks, no longer freighted with awkwardness but tinged now with imminent loss. Movers confirmed for 9, he says, sliding her mug across the kitchen island. Title company at 11. Thalia nods, cupping the warm ceramic between her palms. I've already transferred the utilities to the new owners. Effective tomorrow. They speak of practical matters because the alternative is too raw, acknowledging that after today, they will no longer share this address, this space, this daily proximity that has unexpectedly healed more than it has hurt. The movers arrive with industrial efficiency, strangers dismantling what remains of their shared life with practiced indifference. Furniture divided according to previously agreed lists, boxes loaded into separate trucks bound for separate destinations. We'll take these to storage, the foreman confirms, checking items against his clipboard. And these to the downtown apartment. Correct. Correct, Thalia answers, her professional mask firmly in place despite the hollowness expanding beneath her ribs. By 10:30, the house stands empty except for echoes, bare walls where photographs once hung, rectangular patches of unfaded paint marking where furniture protected the color beneath. Their footsteps resonate differently now, sound traveling unimpeded through rooms stripped of softening fabrics and absorbing surfaces. I should do one final walkthrough, Thalia says, her voice unnaturally composed. Make sure nothing was left behind. Kieran nods, understanding her need for a private goodbye. I'll wait outside. She moves through the house alone, room by room, each space a chapter in the story they wrote together. The kitchen where they'd cooked ambitious meals and argued over dishwasher loading techniques. The living room where they'd built blanket forts during power outages and fallen asleep watching old movies. The spare bedroom that had briefly been painted pale green before being returned to neutral beige. In the master bedroom, she pauses longest, remembering not just the intimacy of shared sleep and passion, but the thousand small moments that defined their marriage. Whispered conversations in darkness. Sunday mornings with coffee and crosswords. The comfort of another body breathing beside her own. When she descends the stairs for the final time, her composure remains intact, but something has shifted behind her eyes, a decision forming, not yet articulated even to herself. Outside, Kieran waits beside his car, keys in hand, sunglasses masking his expression. All set. Yes, she answers. I'll meet you at the title company. They drive separately, a practical choice made weeks ago when they couldn't have anticipated how different things would feel today. Thalia follows his car through familiar neighborhoods, watching the distance between their vehicles expand and contract with traffic patterns, a physical manifestation of the relationship that has alternately drawn them together and pushed them apart for years. At a red light 5 blocks from the title company, she watches his profile through 2 car windows, the determined set of his jaw, the slight furrow between his brows that appears when he's deep in thought. The man she married. The man she left. The man she's rediscovered these past 30 days. The light changes. His car moves forward. Hers remains stationary, a decision crystallizing with sudden clarity. Her fingers move across her phone screen with deliberate purpose, typing 3 words that contain volumes. Are we done writing us? She watches his car pull into the title company parking lot ahead. Watches him check his phone before exiting the vehicle. Watches him freeze, then turn back toward the street where her car still hasn't moved. For one eternal moment, they stare at each other across the distance. Physical and emotional space that could expand into permanent separation or collapse into new possibility. Then Kieran is walking, then running back toward her car. She rolls down the window as he approaches, his expression a complex mixture of hope and fear. "No," he says simply, answering her text in person. "We're not done. Not if you don't want to be." "I don't want to be," she admits, the words both terrifying and liberating. "I thought I did. I thought it would be easier, cleaner. But these 30 days changed everything," he finishes. "Not everything," she corrects. "They just reminded me of what was always there. What I tried to forget because remembering hurt too much." He reaches through the window, his hand finding hers. "So what now?" "Now we go sign papers giving away the house we built," she says pragmatically. And then. Thalia takes a deep breath, stepping onto the bridge of possibility with full awareness of its fragility. "And then we start building something new. Not from scratch, but from here. From who we are now, not who we were then." It's not a fairy tale ending, no dramatic reconciliation, no passionate declarations that erase years of hurt and misunderstanding. Instead, it's something more valuable, a clear-eyed choice made with full knowledge of the risks, the work ahead, the possibility of failing again. "I'm scared," she admits. "Me too," he agrees. "But I'm more scared of not trying." As they drive the final blocks to the title company, together now in one car, they carry no illusions about the challenges ahead. Only the courage to face them side by side, and the hard-won wisdom that some things, once broken, can be rebuilt stronger at the seams. 6 months later, spring returns to a different garden. Smaller, newer, intentionally planted rather than inherited. Thalia and Kieran sit on a modest porch overlooking beds of young perennials, not yet established but promising future growth. Their new home lacks the architectural grandeur of the one they sold, but it contains something more valuable: deliberate choices made together. The living room wall features a simple frame containing the first page of Kieran's new book, the title embossed in elegant typography, "The House We Built." The dedication beneath reads, "For T, who taught me that some foundations are invisible but no less real." The publisher wants the full manuscript by August, Kieran mentions, coffee mug balanced on the porch railing. Thalia smiles, her fingers laced with his. "You'll make it. The hard part is already written." They've learned that love isn't found in perfect circumstances but in perfect effort, the daily choice to remain present, to communicate even when it's difficult, to hold space for each other's growth and grief alike. Their relationship bears the marks of its breaking. Conversations still sometimes falter, trust rebuilds in increments rather than sweeping gestures. They attend therapy both separately and together, doing the work they once avoided. But in the scars, they've discovered something neither expected: a deeper capacity for honesty, for vulnerability, for the kind of love that chooses with open eyes rather than blind faith. As twilight settles over their new beginning, they sit in comfortable silence. Two people who have learned that sometimes the longest journey leads right back to where you started, but with wisdom that could only be gained by leaving. Love stories don't always end at happily ever after. Sometimes they begin there. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who believes in second chances. What part of Thalia and Kieran's journey resonated with you most? Let me know in the comments below, and join me next week for another story of hearts finding their way home, even after goodbye. Sometimes we must lose something to understand its true value. Real love isn't about avoiding the storms but learning to dance in the rain together. The strongest relationships aren't those that never break, they're the ones rebuilt with intention, understanding, and the wisdom that comes from having once been broken. Thalia and Kieran's journey reminds us that love isn't a destination but a continuous choice, one made daily, hourly, in moments both significant and mundane. It's found in morning coffee prepared exactly as someone likes it. In the courage to speak difficult truths. in the humility to acknowledge our role in shared pain. True connection doesn't demand perfection. It requires presence. The willingness to see another person completely, their wounds alongside their wonders, their failures alongside their triumphs, and choose them anyway, with clear eyes and open hearts. Perhaps the most profound love stories aren't those that unfold in seamless harmony, but those that weather dissonance and emerge with deeper resonance. Like bones that grow stronger at the point of previous fracture, relationships tested by adversity can develop a resilience that untested bonds never achieve. In the end, it's not about finding someone who will never hurt you, it's about finding someone worth hurting for. Someone who will stand beside you in the ruins and say, "Let's build something new from here." Someone who sees your broken places not as flaws to be hidden, but as portals to greater understanding. Because sometimes, it's only after we've lost everything that we discover what truly matters. And sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings are found on the other side of what we thought was the end.